I want to start by looking at the next batch of $1 million players. It's a number that everyone loves to hear, the $1 million players across the competition.
Yeah.
And who the next batch could potentially be.
Well, last year there were 12 players who were paid more than $1 million to play at AFL level in 2022. When those figures come through at the end of every season, so they'll release this year. 12 hit that mark last year, which was a record for a single season. We see that the likes of Dustin Martin, Nat Fyfe, Jeremy McGovern, Lance Franklin in there, likely Jeremy Cameron as well, Melbourne's Clayton Oliver and Christian Petrarca right on the cusp of that, Kelly Caniglio and Green as well at the Giants, we expect around that mark. But there are also 51 players who are paid more than $800,000. So this is the group that you start to think, who can be the next $1 million players, the next MDPs? And that's what I'm going to call this group, because everyone likes, as you say, the $1 million players, the guys who are paid $1 million to play their footy each season. Money's going up. So the AFLPA and the AFL are locked in collective bargaining agreement talks at the moment. If we see wages raised by 25 to 30% over the course of the next deal, even incrementally, the $1 million player is going to become more common. So the $750,000 player of today is going to be worth $1 million of tomorrow. So that's really interesting.
So you're saying there's going to be 51 $1 million
No,
players?
I don't think there'll be that many, but I do think there's going to be a new batch coming. So I'm interested to see who that next crop of MDPs are, the $1 million players, and how they all fit into their clubs.
When do you think they get to MDP range? What age profile do they start going there?
At different rates, and this is the group that I want to talk about now, who are going to be the next crew of $1 million players. Some of these players are already signed long-term. Some of them are coming out of contract over the next couple of years. Some of them are in that middle range as well. So I'm not necessarily saying these guys are going to be $1 million players in their next contract, but I do think that across their career, they might hit the $1 million mark. So we'll call it new money. These are the guys that are going to have this new money coming into the AFL. Look at some of the names here on the board. Zach Butters, he might be a Brownlow medalist at the end of this year. He's out of contract next season, but I think he's playing $1 million football at the moment and into the future too. Connor Rosie, a match winner already, out of contract next year, but likely to be a Port Adelaide captain pretty soon, potentially even next season. I think both of those guys are $1 million players in waiting.
Yes.
Will Day signed a 4-year deal through to fate, free agency. After that, I think you get $1 million offers to either stay or leave Hawthorn. I think that's the sort of money that we'll be talking about. Nick Dacos is one that I want to put on the radar again. He's got 2 years to go on his contract on the current deal that he signed pre-joining Collingwood under the father-son arrangement that he's got there. So he's exceeding the worth of that already. Again, he might win the Brownlow this season too. So I think I said about 8 weeks ago that the Pies should make a $6 million move and redo his deal. Give him a 6-year extension, get him through to free agency at $1 million a season. I would still think that. I still think that's something that should happen. I think it's something that probably will happen around that mark because they're a smart club and they operate in that sort of manner. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. I think they would do that because he's a $1 million player every single day of the week. Max King, he's an MDP key forward. There's no doubt about that. We're seeing that already with what he's performing and doing. Jason Horne-Francis signed for the long term, but he's looming as a $1 million player at some stage in his career.
So he's signed till 28, so it'll have to be after that.
Yeah, or they bump it up in between. They can obviously adjust deals. And there's TPP arrangements as well, which sees clubs raise their deals when the total player payments raise as well, and that's written into some contracts. Bailey Smith's one I want to throw out there. Would a club throw $1 million at Bailey as not only player but personality?
You get the full package there.
And the package, His form is going to be up to that, I think. I think at some point he's going to be one of the top 5 midfielders in the competition. It's more about getting that full-on midfield time. Oscar Allen. Now, the Eagles, I think, are in the position where they could front-end a deal that makes him a $1 million player soon. He's signed until the end of 2025, but he's the future. He's probably the next captain of that club. So he's one I wanted to raise as well.
And key forwards get that type of money in the sense that they're so valuable because they're so rare. I mean, there's obviously a large percentage of the competition that are midfielders or view themselves as midfielders, but there's a very small portion that see themselves as key forwards. So if you get an A-grader like Oscar Allen is, and someone who's got the versatility to play in a number of different roles, bumps up your price. That's what gets there.
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted to put these other two on the radar as well. Aaron Norton, we've spoken about a bit on the show. He's definitely going to be $1 million player, I think, and the offers he's going to get next year as a 7-year out-of-contract player. He's not going to get to those contract decisions at least until the end of this season. And Jamal Ugle-Hagan, this might be going a little bit early, but I'm just seeing the rise here number one pick from 2020. I think we've seen enough over the course of the last sort of 6 to 8 months of his footy to suggest that he's going to be a long-term star.
Yep.
The last one is Chad Warner.
Yeah.
I think his footy over the course now of a season and a half suggests that he's going to be the Paddy Dangerfield midfielder of the future.
Goal-kicking, explosive mids, they're the types that get you those money.
Yeah, you need to have a few weapons, and he's got them. So they're my $1 million players of the future.
Yeah.
And that's what we think are going to be the guys who really generate the money in the coming years. It's going to be fascinating to see who else emerges because, I think there'll be a fair bit of action on the players who are in that 800 band at the moment but can really jump up with a new pay deal.